Today, state leaders are going to be taking the next step in improving flood warning systems. Coming up, we'll explain why the state almost missed out on millions of dollars to keep you safe.
To not welcome refugees is not the American way. That is not our core American values.
The lawmakers in Texas may have said no to Syrian refugees, but last night city council members sent a different message. What they had to say about the plan to pull funding for refugees in Austin.
And the Global Climate Change Conference in Paris is wrapping up today. The challenge ahead for President Obama before he heads back to Washington.
In-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News Today at 6.
Good morning, everyone. 6 o'clock on this Tuesday morning, and we want to say thank you for waking up with us. I'm Alicia Enns.
And I'm Kate Wida. Of course, we're following your weather and your traffic, and I would say the upside this morning when I stepped outside, it felt a little warmer.
Yeah.
Still a little drizzly, though.
Yeah, a little drizzly out there.
Yeah, it's still going to be kind of a gray, dreary morning. It's something I'm watching for you, but I do think that we are going to see some nice changes soon. And Amanda, you have a couple incidents working. What have you got?
We got a few different things coming into the First Warning Traffic Center. Let's go over to them now. We're starting in East Austin. This just in on the scanners. A crash at East Riverside and Montopolis Drive if you're headed in that area. Just a heads up for you this morning. I know that intersection can be busy. Many drivers move through it to help them get over and reach those main lanes of 71. Not the only crash. We also have an incident showing up in Manor. This is on the eastbound lanes. As you're traveling to Lexington Street, you can see just a bit of slow and go. Actually seeing a little slow and go here on northbound 973. And then for anyone headed into Del Valley, this earlier crash in the final clearing stages, not just a crash, but a liquid spill too. This was reported on eastbound 71 and Kellum Road. That is your First Warning Traffic 1 minute after 6. Rosie, let's get that forecast from you now.
Thank you very much, Amanda. It's looking pretty gray outside. You'll be able to see it once the sun shines. And by the way, that's going to be in an hour and 7 minutes. Live look there over our Howdy Honda weather cam. Still pretty quiet at this time, and we could use any quiet that we could get, especially with, as Kate said, the fact that it feels just a touch warmer outside than it did 24 hours ago. Starting to see some improvements across our metro counties, especially to the east. San Saba, Lampasas, the only two spots at this time that are a hair cooler than they were in the last 24 hours, but it's okay. We're still all together going to see improvements later on this afternoon. 37, our coolest spot right now up in San Saba, but we have temperatures as warm as a 50-degree mark. That's a pretty wide temperature range across just central Texas, but our hill country does have a tendency to be on the cooler side. I'll tell you where the hill country is heading this afternoon, along with our metro counties and areas to the east. That's coming up.
Okay, Rosie, thank you. Today, state leaders could take the next step in putting millions of dollars towards Texas flood warning systems.
Yeah, last month, KXAN investigation shed some light on a problem which kept the funds from going to disaster planning for communities. Our Sophia Beausoleil is here to talk more about that and kind of explain what the holdup was.
Hi, good morning. So basically the money was in limbo, and this money is needed to help when it comes to the security systems in place to let us know whether the floodwaters are rising in the river. So this afternoon, the Texas Water Development Board will consider approving $6.8 million in emergency funding for stream gauges and floodplain management. Now here's why. That amount they'll consider today is supposed to replace money wrapped up in financial limbo between the Legislative Budget Board and the governor's office. Governor Greg Abbott explained in a letter that funding was improperly appropriated to an account that could not be accessed during the emergency action during the Memorial Day weekend floods. Today's action from the Texas Water Development Board would free up that money, and that means that money could go towards replacing flood gauges on waterways like the Blanco River in Hays County. Currently, there are no gauges along that 40-mile stretch, which is upstream from Wimberley. So that meeting will be this afternoon at 1:30 at the Stephen F. Austin building, and we will definitely have more information on it. We'll be there later on today.
Yeah, good to know. Thank you. Well, President Obama is headed home from Paris tonight, leaving negotiators to work out a historic worldwide deal on climate change.
And new this morning, the White House is announcing 73 more American companies. They're promising to go green. This would reduce emissions by as much as half. Meanwhile, President Obama had a dinner with French President Francois Hollande last night to talk more about the fight against ISIS in Syria.
They're very different threats, but they're both very serious, and we have to deal with both of them.
A global climate change deal has yet to be announced. The U.S. is insisting it not be called treaty, so it doesn't have to be approved by Congress. But so far, 180 nations have agreed to reduce emissions.
Several key Austin leaders, including Mayor Steve Adler, are heading out to the summit in Paris this week. And while they hope to learn from other cities, Adler says Austin already has a lot to brag about.
Austin has been a city that has always led by example. We're a city of innovation. We're a city of early adopters.
Well, one thing that helps Austin stand out is its incentive program to encourage people to use clean energy. Austin Energy will also pay up to $1,500 for an in-home charger for an electric car. The city also pays to install car charging stations at 100 locations around Austin. Drivers can use them for $5 a month. The city also offers loans of up to $20,000 to install solar panels on your home. And coming up at 6:45, Tracy Potts is going to be joining us live from Washington, D.C. with more on today's climate change conference and what's next for the United States.
6:05 is your time, and Governor Greg Abbott has prohibited the use of state funds to help Syrian refugees. But last night, Austin City Council members showed they have a different opinion. Members voted down a resolution that would have stopped taxpayer money from helping Syrian refugees here in Austin. Some people, like Caritas Executive Director Catherine Quinn, agree with the decision.
To reject people who are literally running for their lives, trying to find safety for their family, that is just not who we are.
On the other side of the issue, retired Colonel Clark Strawn says that he is standing by the decision to turn away refugees.
I believe the safety of our country and state should be our #1 priority. Do we want to take a chance on what happened in Paris happening in Austin? I don't think so.
Well, Quinn says of all the people that apply for refugee status, only about 1% are approved to be refugees. Well, despite President Obama alerting states that they do not have the legal authority to refuse accepting Syrian refugees, Texas is one of more than 24 states whose governors want to do it anyway.
In Washington, the United States strategy for defeating ISIS in Iraq and Syria takes center stage. The House Armed Services Committee is holding a hearing this morning. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter and Joint Chiefs of Staff General Chairman Joseph Dunford will testify about how the current strategy in fighting ISIS will impact both regions going forward. The White House has also announced new steps in its counter-terror campaign. There's a new senior advisor to the president, Robert Malley. He's going to be focusing solely on the anti-ISIS fight. USA Today is reporting the Pentagon may send more troops to Syria to fight ISIS. A senior defense official told the paper that it will consider deployment if the pilot project there shows signs of progress. Last month, the Pentagon announced 50 commandos will be sent to northern Syria to advise forces fighting ISIS.
For the first time since pleading not guilty back in August, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is back in court. Paxton faces felony charges of defrauding investors. He's accused of asking investors to give money to the tech startup company Servergy back in 2011. Paxton was a state lawmaker at the time. However, he allegedly didn't tell those investors he was being paid by the company. His attorneys have asked the judge to throw out the indictments handed down over the summer because of a flawed investigation. Special prosecutors say those claims were meritless. Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is asking for a new trial in a different venue. His lawyers will appear in court today to argue that motion. The same judge who presided over the trial will hear the arguments. Back in June, Tsarnaev was sentenced to death for his role in the 2013 bombing, which left 3 people dead and 260 people injured.
On the campaign trail, it was a big day for Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Yesterday, 13 women senators endorsed her at a fundraiser put on by Women for Hillary. Clinton focused on the promise of opportunity in America being available for future generations. Meanwhile, Republican frontrunner Donald Trump had a rally in Georgia last night. He talked about the financial troubles of Obamacare and fighting ISIS, but spent most of his time attacking Democratic candidates. Trump said Hillary Clinton, quote, shouldn't be allowed to run. He also said Bernie Sanders suffered a hernia from carrying around too many tax problems.
6:09 is your time. And parents in Hays County tonight, there is a public meeting about proposed changes to attendance zones. The goal is to relieve overcrowding and allow for some future growth. Well, at tonight's meeting, you'll be able to see the rezoning maps to see if your kids would be impacted by this. If you'd like to go, it's happening at 6 o'clock at Buda Elementary Upper Campus in the Kunkel Room.